Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Discover a New Generation of Digital Microscope, the Emspira 3. My name is Konstantin Kartashev. I am Advanced Workflow Manager at Leica Microsystems, and I will be your host today. Our speaker is my colleague Michael Doppler. He is Advanced Workflow Specialist, also at Leica Microsystems. You will hear of him shortly. But first, I'd like to welcome and introduce you to our webinar platform, which is fully browser-based. So if you find yourself disconnecting at any time, please click the link you received by email to immediately rejoin the webinar session. All of the icons along the bottom of your screen are interactive widgets. You can ask questions using the Q&A widget or by using the questions box. We will try to get through as many questions as we can once the presentation has concluded. Please use the help widget if you do experience any technical problems or require any assistance. You can also move, resize, or maximize any of the icons on your screen to get a better view of the slides if you need it. And now I'd like to directly hand over to Michael.
Thank you, Konstantin, and welcome everybody to our webinar for Emspira 3, Inspiring Simple Inspection. What you're going to see is first an overview of Emspira features and properties, and then I will switch over to the standalone version, which will be today's topic. So we are today talking of Emspira 3 in a complete standalone version. You only have to connect it to a screen, but we will come to this. So Emspira 3 digital microscope combines everything needed to perform comprehensive visual inspection in a single system, including comparison, measurement, and documentation, and the sharing of the documentation. It is typically built for industrial applications like electronics and electrical, like car manufacturing and transportation, aircraft building and aircraft parts, and medical devices. But not only that, of course, you can use Emspira 3 also for other purposes, like in life science, when you have small animals that you want to take pictures of plants, but also any other thing that you would normally put under a stereo microscope. Until now, you probably needed different workstations with PC for dedicated work steps, and that reduces efficiency. Now with Emspira 3, you have an all-in-one system where you can image, compare, measure, store, and share documents. So, for example, in the on-screen without PC standalone version, you can measure directly during the visual inspection or the visual observation of anything that you have under this digital microscope. And you can save the results of the measurements directly on the image. You have also, and that is pretty new, a comparison possibility. So you can compare a stored image with a live image with a single click. Networking is extremely easy, and we will come to that interface later. But whenever you want to do networking with Emspira 3, what you should do is you should include your IT department, because they will have to make some adjustments. Emspira 3 is totally adaptable for different tasks. So Emspira 3 is with the same microscope body interface as our routine stereo microscopes. So all our microscope stands, most of the microscope illuminations are combinable with Emspira 3. We also have a long list of objectives that you can use. So it is totally modular in terms of stands and illuminations. And here you see some different illuminations. So for example, this one here is in a standalone mode with a 10-inch touchscreen monitor. Here you see it on a LED 2500 stand with a 4K TV screen or screen with a swing arm stand. Another example with a larger swing arm stand where you can even put very large samples underneath. Up here, it's with a flex arm stand. And here you actually see it's not only possible to use it in industry, but also in different kinds of life science or in geology. Whatever you want to put underneath, Emspira 3 doesn't really care. What is also different to all its predecessors in the standalone version, you have a large overview of functions, but depending on your workflow and the user, you can customize the interface so you can make parts of that disappear if you don't want the user to change it. So that is a quite interesting possibility in the menu point settings. And as I said, you can make the interface as lean as you want. Furthermore, we've given Emspira 3 a couple of things that are pretty new. So for example, Emspira 3 has a 4K sensor. Whenever you connect Emspira 3 with a full HD or a 4K monitor, it discovers itself to what it is connected. So you don't have to do any adjustments there. Furthermore, we have given Emspira 3 IP21 approved housing. And what we've learned also a little bit due to COVID that we are suffering from now since more than 1.5 years, we have given Emspira 3 an AG-treat antimicrobial surface, which means there are silver nanoparticles built into the housing that make bacteria and viruses inactive. We have done that before on our educational microscopes because there are very many users that can change, and so we use that same technology that is in place since quite a while.
Michael, you mentioned the IP housing. Can you explain it more? What does it mean exactly?
IP with different number settings means that the housing is protected against particles that can come into the housing or against water. And depending on the number that you give, that varies in terms of what can happen. So the IP21 housing has been tested from us under vertical water flow and against entering of particles. Also, when Emspira 3 is sent out, all the connectors that are on the back are sealed with plugs, and you only open the plugs or the connections that you really need. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
So what has Emspira 3? It has an integrated 12 megapixel camera. As I said before, it has 4K resolution with a fast live image with up to 60 frames per second. You can have an integrated on-screen display for standalone operation without the need of a PC which is what we are going to do today. You have an adaptable user interface, as we just discussed, the IP21 housing, antimicrobial surface with AG treat. It has an 8:1 zoom range, which is an encoded zoom, and it has parfocal optics. Parfocal means when you focus on something at high magnification and you lower the magnification, everything stays in focus. So again here, just the summary. Most importantly for all the industrial users is that you can streamline your inspection process, you can cover your inspection needs flexibly, and you can work with confidence. So the pictures that you are going to see from now on are pictures that I've taken with this setup. So I've been using an LED 2500 stand with inbuilt illumination, an Emspira 3, and this kind of Samsung 4K monitor that is also available from us. This is actually when you connect and start Emspira 3, on the screen will appear the Leica logo and its name. And the next thing you will see is your live image. This is actually a video that I'm going to start now that I've recorded, which shows you the zoom range of Emspira 3 with the 8:1 zoom, zooming in and out on that electronic part that I'm using now for the rest of the presentation to show you all the possibilities that you have with Emspira 3. So the first thing that you have to do when you start Emspira 3 is you go into the settings menu, and here in the settings, you see it opens with English, but if you click on language, you can choose out of many languages, including German, French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, and I guess Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. The next thing you do is to make Emspira 3 operational is out of this list of objective numbers here, you choose the objective that you're actually using. So then the calibration data for this objective will be used for further use inside Emspira 3. So the next thing is you can use here in the settings menu different ways of making symbols and logos disappear. So that is to customize your interface. Furthermore, you have up here the functionality of, for example, how you want to acquire an image. You can acquire an image by pressing the middle mouse button. You can also say, okay, start recording on the middle mouse button, or you can do your white balance, define your white balance there, or comparison. You can also use a foot switch, which is directly connected for acquiring images or giving it also other function. And you can also say with what you want to have an automatic image copy. The next thing from the settings, after being in general, we go to the gallery, and in the gallery, you can define your image name, your time format, and if you want to acquire an image with or without overlay. Then we go into network settings, and you see there is nothing appearing on that particular image here. And that is simply because when I took these pictures, I was not connected to a network. Network connection can be done with a Wi-Fi dongle or with a LAN cable. And that looks then like this. And here you can say, for example, this is the user email that I want to send pictures to, or that is can be your, sorry. And here you can also say where you want to share it and where you want to store your images. That is why I mentioned before, when storing images on a network device, please inform your IT and have it involved in the installation. Next
Michael,
thing, yeah.
Sorry, as I see, it's possible to share the images via Wi-Fi and network, and then either send it via email and as well to place it on a file server, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely correct. That's the idea behind it.
Great.
So again, that means there is no PC directly involved when you take the pictures, but you can share that on a network drive or send it directly per email. Next thing that we come to is the settings for the camera. Here we have typical camera settings available, plus some more that we didn't have before. So your first choice when you are in the camera setting, you can choose the image format that you want to store the images with. I forgot one thing. In the not network setting, the images are actually saved on a USB drive, which is connected directly into Emspira. What is also connected to make all these manipulations possible in the standalone setup from us, that includes also a wireless mouse and the necessary cables and the power supply for Emspira 3. So again, back to the camera. Here in this menu point, you decide what format you want to use. Next thing is that once you have done that, the camera has a possibility to switch on and off auto brightness. If you switch off auto brightness, you will have two sliders up here for exposure and for an amplification with gain. And you adjust your exposure time. And you see here for this image, the exposure time would have been 4.8 milliseconds, which is very, very short. The next one will show you with 21 milliseconds, and the image is already overexposed even before we have gain used. The whole point why I showed this overexposed picture, all this does not happen if you switch on the auto button and you go to a middle brightness. Then the machine will do everything itself. Another thing is that you have a one push white balance. So before you start any inspection or experiment, you should do a white balance, simply that the colors on your stored images then appear correctly. But of course, you can also adjust red, blue, and green individually. You can also change gamma values, sharpness values, saturation values, and you can give it a noise reduction. What is really important is that the colors that Emspira 3 produces and shows you on the screen should be as close to reality as possible. That sometimes is a bit difficult because many of the screens, for example, are having settings that are oversaturated, and that is why here in the saturation level, you see a -2. So that avoids the oversaturation that actually comes from the screen. What you also have, and which is new, is you can switch to grayscale here. And you can switch to negative. The negative, I have tested that, is pretty useful when you have to compare things and you produce your comparison image either in black and white, as you will see further on, or in negative, because if you overlay your comparison image of your master piece and you put the serial production underneath and you orient it correctly with the same magnification, of course, then the image will become completely gray if they are overlaying perfectly. You also have the possibility to mirror horizontal and vertical, which in the standalone version is not really needed because you will see the image in the correct orientation. The next thing we have here, and this is something again that I will show you, is we have also built in a digital zoom. So if I change that here, I can go up to higher magnification. And if you look at the scale bar and the magnification number down here, if I do that again, you see that the scale bar and the magnification number are changing. Where you have to be careful with that digital zoom is the digital zoom magnifies a part of the image digitally. It does not mean you will get better resolution than with a low magnification. So now I'm going to do a similar thing, but except with digital, I'm using the zoom of Emspira 3 itself. And you see here again, down here, scale bar and magnification numbers are changing. And this is still what Emspira 3 can do on that little electronic part. But of course, on top of that, I can add digital zoom, which does not give me any more resolution than the original optical image. So that was what we have in the camera menu. Now we come into the gallery menu, and you see here different stored images, and you just click on them and open them like that. If you have a video, it's marked here with vid. We also have a gallery of reticules, and there are stored reticules that already come with Emspira, like these crosshairs here, or a Santa Cross, or our logo. But of course, you can also create your own overlays according to your needs. The next menu button we are going to use is measure. And if you click on measure, automatically this user interface appears. And in measure, you have different options. One option, which is very important if you want to control if the measurements are correct, is to check if the user calibration is correct or not. This is very easy. You put a scale, an object micrometer underneath, adjust the line, and then check if the number of pixels corresponds to the distance that you've just shown or try to measure. And then you can say here, reset, and give in the number yourself. Furthermore, you have the option of line creation. That's a simple line. You can create arrows, and then you can, of course, use the selected item and make it disappear. Then you have here the line measurement option. And when you right-click on your mouse, when you have activated the line measurement or any of the other measurements that I'm going to show you, you get actually a digital magnifying glass that shows you how good or how bad you are in positioning. So here I put the next position on the other side, and then you see here that my measurement line is not straight. But of course I can correct that and straighten it up, and then I get automatically the distance. Furthermore, I can measure angles. I can measure circles, and what I get is the circle diameter and the circle surface. I can measure rectangles, get the same thing. I get the perimeter length and the surface. And of course, I can do the same thing for surface measurements of irregular shapes. Here, I'm just doing parallel lines with the line function, and I can move them as soon as I see that white square. I can move the lines laterally or vertically, does not really matter. In the measurement, I have also this snowflake symbol here. If you use that, you will get an image freeze, which is not supported for the 12 megapixel image, but for all other resolutions that you have chosen. You can acquire, by clicking on the camera symbol, the image with an overlay. So that would be then the acquired image. Or if you go on that disk symbol, you store the overlay. Of course, you can change the properties of the overlays. You can give different colors. You can give different opacities, and you can change font size and different fonts and line width, for example. So here I've changed the line to blue, and I have no background here. And again, then after changing that, I can say here, acquire image with overlay. Now we come to the reticules, and I've created here with our parallel lines that we've seen before, I've created an overlay which appears then not on the camera, but it's stored on the connected USB stick. Now we come to the compare function. The compare function allows me to check here in the gallery an image that I want to compare my live sample under the microscope with. So if you want to toggle between the comparisons, you have here the image, how it looks when you have an overlay. And as I said before, I'm using the grayscale image so that you better see the difference between the comparison image and the live image. For positioning, if you have tasks like that, what I very, very strongly recommend to you is to use a gliding stage, because with a gliding stage, you can much better adjust and much finer adjust the overlay level and quality. So this is how it would look if I put my color image on top of the grayscale image. So, and the overlay is pretty good. I can also, by just toggling on the image, switch to my comparison image on the left, my live image on the right and vice versa, and go back to the overlay. So that was a short overview over the features of Emspira in the standalone mode. And I hope that you have now lots and lots of questions to us.
Thank you very much, Michael. The audience, we are about now to begin our Q&A session. So if you have any questions for our speaker today, feel free to type them in the Q&A box on your screen. And as the first questions come in, I would like to briefly ask you for feedback to our webinar. On the side, actually, you should see a window with 4 short questions. Feel free to tell us, for instance, which other topics from the world of microscopy you'd like to see in future webinars. And yeah, just let's start with the first question. Besides the standalone mode that you presented today, Michael, is there a possibility as well to connect Emspira to the Leica software?
Absolutely, but that will be a subject for another webinar. But it's possible, yes. LASX supports Emspira.
Great, thanks. There is as well a question back to the standalone mode, if it's possible to connect a keyboard.
Yes, no problem. We have a multitude of normal USB connectors. Emspira itself is powered by a USB-C. Then there is a so-called USB AB speed connector into which the USB drive is connected. And then there are 2 or 3 more for a keyboard, for the wireless mouse, or for a wired mouse. No problem.
And as far as I know, if you do not have a keyboard, an on-screen keyboard will be displayed as well, so
Absolutely.
that you can type it in with your mouse.
As soon as you do annotations, an on-screen display pops up.
Great, thanks a lot. One question is the size of the camera sensor. Do you know that directly?
Not by heart, no.
I think we will send it.
I would have to check that.
We will send it via email. It's no problem.
Yeah.
So
what I can tell you, it is a CMOS sensor, and we are using that same sensor also in the new FlexaCam C3.
One question as well is the zoom range. So which zoom range do we have in the optical and as well in the digital?
The zoom range optical is 8:1 or 1:8. And in digital, we can add, wait a second, I have to go back to the slides. We can have 2 times digital zoom.
One question was about a function that was seen in the beginning, actually, with the images. It's called automatic image copy. Can you explain more what this function can do? I just checked with the slides. I think it was on slide 19.
I just don't remember that because I haven't tried that out. I have to admit. I haven't tried that, but I guess it means that if you do image copy, that you can have the image with or without overlay. And you can switch overlay on or off in different ways.
Okay, thank you. There are some questions coming in. One nice question that just came in is the depth of field of the system.
The depth of field of the system is not existing. The depth of field depends on the front objective that you're using and the zoom position that you are using, because that varies the depth of field always varies with the zoom position that you're having. The lower your zoom position is, the more depth of field you have. And the lower your objective magnification is, the more depth of field you have, as a rule of thumb.
And I think this leads quite nicely to as well another question about combination possibilities. So you already mentioned that we can combine it with different stages, with different illumination options. How about as well motorized stages?
For that, you can combine that. That's no problem. But then for controlling the motorized stage, you cannot do that in standalone mode. You would have to use then LASX software, for example, for stitching. And you can also combine it with a motor focus to make Z-stacks.
Thanks a lot.
But that is not working in standalone.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm just checking the questions. Okay. One question is, do you need to check the calibration every time you zoom?
No. There is a Hall sensor in it, and that gives you magnification values. It repeats the magnification value of the zoom position relatively well.
Wonderful. Okay.
And we have done with quite a number of people test of how good the calibration actually is for the different zoom positions, and the numbers for that you will find on our website. That are maximum error numbers, but if you work more precisely and closer, the quality of measurements will get better. On the other hand, what I have to say, Emspira 3 can measure, but it's not in a strict sense a metrological instrument, because for that you are not allowed to use a zoom.
Right.
So it's the same as with stereo microscopes. You can measure with stereo microscopes, but they are also not measuring instruments in a metrological sense.
It's in the ranges, of course, yes.
It's in the ranges. And of course, then typically the errors that appear come also from the user, how precisely he puts the measurement lines. Because at the end of the day, it's counting pixel and transforming that into distances or surfaces.
Great. Okay. So far, I think. All right. So there's one question exactly coming to this topic. What is the accuracy of the measurements then? I think this goes really in the hard detailed facts.
That depends, of course, on the magnification you're using. That depends on the user. That depends on a number of variables.
And of course, objective, yeah.
And if your calibration is correct or not. And then if you measure in the middle of an image, the measurement will always be better than in the corners of an image. But that's a general fact when you are working with zoom optics.
Exactly. Great. I think so far we have all questions answered. And for the detailed questions, I'm sure we will get back to the audience members and provide as well brochures and further technical details then. Okay, and yeah, so first of all, thank you all for joining the webinar and for asking the questions. In case you will have further questions, just simply write us to info@leicamicros.com or visit us at leicamicrosystems.com. In the next days, you will receive a link to this webinar where you can watch it then on demand whenever you like. And yeah, so once again, from my side, thank you all for joining, and I wish you a great day.
Thank you as well from my side. I hope you enjoyed that presentation, and I hope to see you soon on another webinar. Goodbye and have a nice day and stay healthy.